Welcome to In The N.O. We are here to talk about the Pelicans, as always. To talk a lot more about basketball this week. Obviously, we wanted to make it entirely about basketball, but there's some other stuff to cover. We'll get to that. But Mason, Jeremy, what's happening? How y'all doing?
Kicking it, my childhood bedroom, man. Back home, back in New Orleans for about another week or so. Because it's good to be back.
I was here to discuss the battle of the bands happening Friday, but I guess we have to talk about basketball.
Are you going?
Absolutely, my bandhead son and my alma mater. Yes, I will be there Friday night. Come through if you see me. Say what's up.
For our non-New Orleanian listeners, this is a pretty big annual event, so it's a great way for the city to kind of show out and get in touch with the schools that everyone else went to and stuff. So
Bayou Classics, HBCU extravaganza, Southern versus Grambling. Friday night they do the step show for the Divine Nine fraternity sororities, and then the Battle of the Band closes out the night. Be there.
Yep. Good times. Probably some of the more fun times related to sports in this state going on at this moment in time. So if you have an opportunity to go have fun, but we'll get started. We obviously the chat's open for everybody to kind of chime in. We'll address questions as they come, but we have a lot to cover as well, and probably leave some space at the end for some general question answer, a general question answer segment. But let's get started. So at the beginning of this week, I published a report on the Pelicans and their power structure and their decision-making structure. And in that report, I talked about how the Pelicans have a new basketball operations consultant. His name is Jordan Dumars. He is Joe Dumars' son, and kind of the process that went on in the team for him to get his role, and just what the general vibe is around that, and how how the inner dynamics are playing out in that situation. And I thought it was an important story to cover, but I know you guys have a few questions, so I'm going to let you ask this question before I just kind of rewrite the article in my own words here in the podcast.
I guess the biggest question is, why are they so secretive about this? Like, why hide that? Like, why are you hiding a child, to paraphrase a rapper? Why are you hiding a consultant that you want to confide in for the leadership of this basketball team? Why not let the public know about that? That's the question I have. The biggest one.
Yeah, I mean, and unfortunately, I think that's the most difficult question to answer, just from a facts perspective, right? Like Joe is not going to come on this podcast and answer that on the record, but I think there is an important distinction to make. To be completely clear and upfront, people in the NBA hire their relatives, and that's not a problem. It's all across the NBA. It's in every role that you can imagine. It's in the coaching staff. It's in the front office. It's in the training staff. It's in the marketing team. If you know somebody and you're related to someone who works in the NBA or in any professional sport, a great way for yourself to land a job in that industry is to leverage that connection. That is something that I think the overwhelming majority of people don't really have an issue with, because it doesn't really impact the day-to-day. It doesn't really impact the product. It doesn't. I mean, I think anybody in a position of power is going to do what they can to help people they know succeed in those terms. So the story is not that, oh, Joe has hired his son. That's not the story. The story is that Joe's son was around the team, and initially, it's like, oh yeah, Joe's son's around the team. That's cool. He's hanging around. Oh, I guess he's going to be going on road trips. Okay, I guess he's going to be on the team plane. I guess he's going to be in the bus. I guess he's going to be in meetings. I guess he's going to have input on basketball decisions. I guess he's going to have, be a part of the strategy discussions, be a part of things that actually influence decision-making process. And so that's when the question started to arise. It's like, okay, he's around, but and this is from the point of view of like other team employees in basketball operations coaching across the organization, that people who report to Joe and are under Joe and in the org structure downwards. And the question started to come across like, okay, well, what is his exact title and role? Because we haven't been told what that title is, other than he's Joe's son, right? We don't know what kind of capacity he's operating in. It's not a situation where you have someone that you bring in from the get-go and you're like, hey, team, we're bringing in my son, we're bringing in this guy, and this is the capacity he's going to be involved in. He's going to be involved in operations. If you have any questions, whatever, come talk to me. But this is the deal. And I think if that is the way it would have transpired, most people in the organization would have been like, oh yeah, sure. Like, I guess this is how things are going to be. We'll deal with it. Right. Like maybe some people would have rolled their eyes like, oh, he's bringing his son. Maybe some people have been like, yeah, like what are his qualifications? But for the most part, people have been like, oh, okay, I guess, this is just the new norm, right? He's just a part of that crew. But that bit of communication never took place. And I think that right there is the story to me, is that communication never taking place, where now there is someone who is in the innermost decision-making circle, giving input and influencing things like what players should be traded, or there's a lot of people who have 1 year left on their options as employees. Like, people are wondering, is this guy going to have a say-so in my employment moving forward? Like, is this a relationship that one, I need to like continue to build, but also two, like, am I reporting to this guy? Like, it's unclear. There's just a lot of lack of clarity around the whole situation. And so I think that is the bigger story. And so I reached out to the organization to get clarity on that. And, like, first of all, credit to the organization. They're very willing to work through this. They were understanding of this whole situation and acknowledged the lack of clarity and everything there. But, when I reached out, I was like, hey, like, what is his title? And has he been involved in these high level decision-making situations and meetings and conversations and et cetera, et cetera. And on both fronts, the organization got back to me. They said, first of all, let me get back to you. And then it took some time, and the organization got back to me and they said, he is a basketball operations consultant. And yes, he has been involved at that level. This is not someone that is been brought in at a mid-level position or a lower level position. He's at the very top. Right. And then I followed up with the organization. I was like looking at their list of employees, and I was like, okay, well, if this is his official title, why has he not been listed just as everyone else has been listed? And to be clear, like, the Pelicans have another situation here that I think is totally common and totally above board, and something, what we just talked about, like how it should be, like, this is how I think all NBA teams operate, and it's really a non-issue, is Troy Weaver's own son is on the directory, and he's listed as a regional scout. Troy brought his kid along, and he's like, hey, we're gonna assign you a region to scout, and that's his job. He's gonna do his job. Troy didn't bring his son in and insert him into a decision-making role or a decision-making capacity, right? That's not what he did. And the Pelicans also listed, he's on the directory. Troy's son's on there, and I think that is something that takes place in every single sports organization, and it's largely a non-issue. However, the Joe situation was the opposite of that, where it wasn't disclosed on a public level, and it wasn't disclosed on an internal level. Like, there's two fronts of a lack of disclosure. And so when the org, when I asked him, like, why isn't he the director, the org's initial response was he was left out. That's going to get fixed. And then, a day later or so, I got another follow-up from the org, and they said, no, he wasn't left out. We just don't list all the consultants. And so that was their response on that. And so I think it's long story short, the summary, the takeaway from all this is genuinely, and I mean this, no one in that building had a clue on what his role and title was. And it didn't exist until there was a formal inquiry. And now there's a role, now there's a title, and there's more clarity on like, yes, he is involved in that, but there's still not like a great deal of transparency. And I think that is the larger issue at hand. Do you guys, I guess, agree that that is problematic?
Yeah, I agree. I think my questions, I wonder how much the lack of transparency correlates to the elevation that he apparently has in the organization. Because you look at the example you gave around Troy Weaver's kid being a regional scout. I mean, that feels, I don't know the inner like every single job title with the NBA team, but it feels pretty, as far as like entry level goes for a role within an organization, kind of feels like that. And honestly, we know Troy Weaver's pretty damn good at the whole scouting front. And so I think that's, again, feels very logical to me. I think the fact that there was no title and someone, like Jordan Dumars is supposedly helping to make important decisions. I can understand as an employee or basketball ops person who maybe has spent years kind of trying to work my way up, being a little bit like, what's going on here? I mean, and also you mentioned the good point of, are you fearful for your employment status? And so I certainly understand the potential concerns about how this is all playing out. I guess my question is really, how much influence or do we really think that he has? It's probably an impossible question to answer, right? But I think it's an important one. If he's just kind of involved because he's Joe's son, or is he actually helping to mold certain decisions around how this team functions? That's my big question. And again, probably no one's going to have an answer, but the inner circle of the team.
Yeah, and I think that's a question that people in the building have. I think that's again, like, that's the core of the issue is you can't have players wondering if this guy has say so and if they're going to get traded or not, or say so in their next contract, right? But that is a situation that exists. You can't have employees wondering is the work that they're doing to support the organization just completely going to get brushed aside because this person has input and they're just, the team is going to take the direction of whatever this person wants to go or something like that, right? What we do know is that Troy Weaver does the bulk of the day-to-day lifting, right? And most of the decisions, if not all of them, that you've seen from a transaction standpoint and a hiring standpoint have been related to Troy. And it goes to hiring Mike Hopkins on to run player development, to obviously the big trades that we've seen. And I think to the overall point about the lack of clarity, John Hollinger and Mike Scotto reported and relayed a story around the Jordan Poole trade where Joe Dumars was holding a meeting with the scouts. And he was giving them the message of, we need these hard-nosed competitive players who are going to try really hard on defense. And that's the kind of the identity we're seeking. And then an hour after he had that meeting, they went ahead and traded for Jordan Poole, who was the antithesis of the kind of player that Dumars was describing to his own employees. And again, where do these decisions come from? Who is making them? Why are they being made? There is no alignment from the top level to the bottom level, which I think creates opportunities for the organization to be run poorly. I'm not saying it can't work, right? Look, there absolutely can be a world where Joe and Troy and Jordan and whoever, they don't really get other people in the organization involved, and they happen to make excellent trades or excellent draft picks, and then the Pelicans win a lot of games. That is a world that can exist. Is that a world where other people want to work in? Is that a work environment that people want to participate in? Is that, when inevitably, I think a lot of these people in the organization feel like they're going to be let go at the end of this year. And that's pretty common when there's a regime change. It has really, I don't think that is a bad thing for Joe Dumars. Like if you're the head guy, you're going to want to bring in your own guys. That is par for the course. You should be allowed to do that. I'm in support of that. However, the people that you're going to bring in next, are you going to be able to recruit the best and brightest? Are you going to be able to fill those spots that are vacant with the type of people that are going to take your organization from where it is now to more respectable in the eyes of the leagues and the peers? And are you going to be able to be competitive? And I think those are the questions that this kind of situation begets. And we don't have an answer to those.
Yeah, and someone mentioned in the chat, and I'm gonna put it up. It's basic nepotism and why is unprofessional. I'm gonna be forefront and honest with y'all. If I had the opportunity, like I would do it. I'm gonna be, I'm gonna put myself out there. I have no issues with that. I have a son, so I understand why. To me, and it's more of it's both a question and a statement. Does this sloppiness is how I would put it. Does this sloppiness of you stating that after you put your great reporting out, you stating that you're going to put it in the directory, and then immediately come back and give a correction, or we don't put any consultants in the directory. That sort of sloppiness, that sort of unprofessionalism. Is there a lack of checks and balances with Joe as it goes to ownership? To hey, we need to at least have something like this happens. We need to have our ducks in a row. We need to let it be known. Is that something that it's coming from the very top, with Gail not being so hands off that she doesn't see this detail? Like, we need to at least check this out and let people know so we can understand the hierarchy within the top of your organization.
I mean, like, first of all, to your point about I'm putting air quotes here on the sloppiness, like, people are just trying to do their job, and you can't do your job effectively if you don't know, like, if the messaging from the top down isn't consistent. This is maybe this is not an accurate example, but I'm going to make this example. Like, these press secretaries for the current administration, and how they just say literally anything and everything, and that message changes on a day-to-day basis. And look, like, I'm not saying these press secretaries are not responsible. I'm not, or for themselves, I'm not trying to, like, absolve them of their own personal responsibility here. But, like, that messaging changes on a day-to-day basis because of where it's coming from, right? Like, those people don't actually hold any power. Like, they are the bearers of the message, right? And I'm not saying that the Pelicans organization is set up like our current administration or anything like that. I'm not. But the point I'm trying to make is that the messaging, the changing of the messaging, if people were better informed from the get-go, they would be able to be more aligned with what that messaging is going to be. And I think,
absolutely,
again, that highlights the core issue here. Like, everybody who wants to, like, bring attention to nepotism, that's not the story. It's a false hearing. I think in fact, I think it's, like, intellectually dishonest to make the story about nepotism. That is really not the story. The story is just nobody knowing what's going on. And I think, I think that's been really tough for the organization to grapple with, and it's left people unprepared. And I think the organization internally, they expected eventually this would get out, but because there was just a lack of communication from Joe on how he wanted to handle this messaging, you can't just proactively make a statement on behalf of your boss because he may want to say something else. You can't just do that. So I think a lot of people were like, yeah, this guy has been, I mean, I have people from other teams calling me and they're like, yeah, dude, he was in our arena. He was, like, attached at the hip to Troy and Joe. Like, what's his deal? What's his role? Like, what is he involved in, and this sort of structure, again, like, I want to, like, point out, it's so insular and it's so isolated. Like, Troy and Joe and now Jordan, like, they just don't communicate with their employees. They don't. And that goes in complete contrast to what Joe said he would do when he was first hired. He said he would get to know who was in his building. And I think that is an area that Joe is just fundamentally failed on. And maybe you could argue that, look, he doesn't need to spend the time and energy to get to know people that he's just going to fire at the end of the year. But like, to me, that's in poor taste. And
human decency, you know?
And I would go a step further to say that, because I think that the point you made that it's not about nepotism is so spot on. Like, it almost doesn't matter to me who he's related to. There's someone in the organization who's like the third or fourth most important decision maker, like who has, I mean, you talked about the lack of at least documentable experience. Like, maybe there's could be plenty of stuff that he's done around hoops, like as from a basketball operations perspective, that we just don't know about. But that's the lack of transparency we're talking about here. It's like, if you're going to put him on staff and have him be important for making decisions, I don't care a shit who's related to. I mean, just make sure that there's clarity. You know? And so that's I think the thing is, like, if I'm a fan of this team and I want to know it's in good hands and have the best possible decision makers, if he's going to be one of those kind of 4 or 5 people who are closest to the top, what are the credentials? Like, give me more confidence that the team is in good hands. And so, like, I don't know, like, I think it's, yes, to your point, it's not at all about the nepotism side of things here.
And I'll go one step further about knowing if it's in good hand and being in poor taste. The Willie Green firing and the press conference that took place afterwards, it was great that Joe answered everyone's questions, stood there, asked them, sincerely. But he did it on a closed camera, and on YouTube, it was a still shot of him sitting somewhere. And it's just like, looking at that, as much as much as you're trying to show a place of strength or a place of professionalism, that major detail makes you look, it's haphazard. Like, it makes you look so small and so out of touch of how to present yourself as a top executive branch, in my opinion.
And like,
another misstep.
Yeah, and like, to your point about like Mason, I think, like, you said it really well. Like, they could have hired you in this position, and I would have written the same story, right? Like, hey, there's this guy,
thanks,
man, Mason, and nobody knows what the hell he does, and everyone's wondering, like, why he's around the whole time. It's kind of like you on this podcast right now. Like, what did you say you do here?
Let's go, man.
No, but like, Jeremy, like, going back to your like question about like Gail, like, does Gail have any say in this? No, man. Like she hired Joe so she could not put a single ounce of brain power.
I forgot she's powerless. She is nuts. She put it on record. She's powerless. She can't do anything else. She's done everything. I'm sorry.
Oh, dude, no, but she did name one of the racehorses after Joe. They named that racehorse Joey D, and poor Joey D, before his race, like, broke out of.
I was wondering if we get to this.
Like, bucked his jockey off, and he said, "I'm not gonna race," and he was a scratch. I think Jeff Duncan put it as a little too amped up,
a little too on the nose too.
Yeah. So, but kind of like just drawing this conversation around this to a close. What happens next is going to be interesting. I think the org probably didn't expect a lot of this reporting to happen this early. Like, I think they kind of maybe they were anticipating, like, when there's a complete house cleaning, like, on the way out, people are going to talk, right? And I think what's happening internally is again, there's this culture of, like, people are like, well, I think we're just going to get let go. and there's a lot of questions that are being asked. And unfortunately, that is the professional environment that Dumars and them have created. And the thing about this is it's extremely correctable. And it just requires people in leadership to be real leaders. And I'll give you an example. Dumars and Weaver and Jordan Dumars, like, they watch their games, like, from a suite with the lights like turned off. And that's just like another example of them just being completely separated from the rest of the org, and just not interacting with them. In the past, both Dell and Griff, like you could see them in the stands, and you could see like, where the employees sat. You could see like the row of executives, right? And in a vacuum, if I were to be like, oh, well, Joe watches the games from the suites and stuff, like you'd be like, why is this even a fucking story? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, but like, it's just yet another example of like, not only like a visual, but like an actual physical disconnect between that top layer of the organization and the rest of the organization. Like, Joe is not around pregame talking to other, like typically when other teams come into town, like some of their executives come into town, their coaches come into town, and it's a good opportunity for executives to chat and mingle, right? Like, there's a lot of, you would see, like if Presti was in town, like you would see Griff chatting with Presti, and like, and you would see Bryson chatting with the assistant GM. You would see, Trajan chatting with, another person. You would see, that kind of like intermingling. Like, that's pretty common. You go on the road, and it's a great opportunity to A, one, gather intel, B, like continue to build those relationships, C, that's like how sometimes these trade ideas get generated, right? Like, you go talk to a person that you see and you don't want to talk to them on the phone and be like, yo, like, we were actually in discussions with Sacramento, and this is what they wanted. Like, would you guys like to help us facilitate this, or things like that, right? And that's not something that you're seeing Joe do. And Joe has not been a very front-facing executive, which I guess I'll ask you this. Do you think it is his role as executive vice president of basketball operations to be this front-facing guy? Or do you think it's acceptable for him to take the hands-off approach and let someone else handle it? Which, to be clear, it's not really transpiring right now.
If it's his job. That said, if it's clear to the other teams in the league who's actually calling the shots, and if what we've heard, through your reporting, I mean, where Dumars is de facto ownership and Troy Weaver is kind of the lead decision maker, I don't love it, but I think it's fine as long as Troy Weaver is doing those things. No, it can't be nobody, I guess is my point. Can't be no one.
Yeah, I echo those sentiments. Like, I want it to be Joe because, it's your name at the top of this. So I want you to have some sort of hands-on approach, even if it's a collective, gathering of minds, and we sitting down and you can try to sway me on something one way or another. Ultimately, it's his job, and I would want him to be the front-facing person. But if it ain't you, it got to be somebody. Somebody got to be approachable, But we haven't played the Kings yet, and they're cool. So you may get that in Sacramento.
Well, like, also Joe was president of the league for a few years. Like, you also got to think he's got some relationships, right? Like, why not? I mean, maybe he doesn't, but like, why not leverage that? Like, why wouldn't you want to kind of be taking that role and putting yourself out there with some of the other heads of the teams? But yeah, so it just the other doesn't really make sense.
Well, we spoke privately about this. Before Joe took the job, he was part of the committee who, discussed and brought together the formula for back-to-backs and scheduling. And now you get this first job, you get the worst schedule statistically in the NBA. Like, you couldn't rub elbows, call a couple people, start politicking, so you don't have to face a team. You don't have to go to Dallas and then come back and play less than 24 hours later, have to play on your home court against a team who brought fans because they're playing their football team is playing the next day. Like, you couldn't, as a marketing
and owns your draft pick.
Yeah,
and owns your draft pick.
As a marketing ploy, I totally understand why Atlanta is playing. The Hawks are playing last night in the Smooth King Center because they're playing tonight in the Superdome. But as a schedule standpoint, you couldn't. Hey, we're going to play an earlier cup game because we can't play on Friday because we need this thing on Saturday. You couldn't try to work something out because you've worked with these people before. Like, what are you doing?
To add a layer of context for our listeners. Before the schedule is released every single year, each team has an opportunity to submit and voice their disagreements. And I'm not saying every single game gets taken into consideration, but the NBA does provide opportunities for teams to give input on the schedule. So we don't know to what level the Pelicans did or did not do that this summer. We don't know. But yeah, I mean, look, I think we all, the three of us, are in agreement that the organization is being run suboptimally at the moment. But I think all three of us are also in agreement that this is something that is very correctable, and that's something that they could turn around. Like, it doesn't take much to change this. It just requires people to be more personable, B, just make themselves more available to their employees and to everyone. And I think there's I absolutely hate this, because I hate when Griff used to say, like, you gotta worry, like, talk about the human, and I'm just like, would roll my eyes every single time when Griff would mention the good humans and the human element, and I'm like, you know, like, there were guys that Griff wouldn't trade for because he didn't believe in the human element for it. And I'm like, are you trying to win games, sir? Like, what? But I do think there is a human element, at least in leadership, where you got to be able to connect with your employees. You got to be able to connect with reporters. You got to be able to connect with fans. You got to be able to connect with the community at large in the city that you're a part of. And when you're able to do that successfully, people are more understanding of your perspective. You know, and I think that is something I hope that this administration changes moving forward. We'll put a pin in this. Let's talk about the fun stuff now. Derik Queen. Derik Queen. Jay, I'm gonna let you go out for a second. I'm gonna pass the rock to you. Let you cook.
My mom, I hope you ain't listening. Did you see the fucking shit he did Friday night? Hey man, that dude amazes me. The more he plays, the higher the stakes, the better he gets. Like, I'm so infatuated with his play. It's a crying shame what they did to him in Maryland. I can say it now. It's a crying shame how they had him playing in Maryland. Like, how can you not have this guy? I rewatched Hoop Intellect's Scouting Breakdown. And shouts out to him. I know I forgot which team they picked him up, but shouts out to you becoming a scout for an NBA team. But he made the same lefty on target pass he made to Trey in the first Dallas game. He made that in Maryland. And how don't you say, hey, whatever, your ego is so big that you can't see, I'm scrapping everything. We're making him our offensive hub to get everyone better. Like, I don't care about our guard play. I don't care anything. We are using this dude to get everyone good open shots. And he's just such a joy to watch. And that's also, last week, Schmidt asked us, hey, what happened first? Fears' three ball falling with consistency, or Queen's defense? And I said the jump shot. Yo, I may be wrong. The way that he understands angles already and can get hands on passes and block shots and get steals, including that last steal last night. That's not making Hawks fans happy, but the way that he creates chaos on the defensive end, and he took a charge late in the Nuggets game that I really appreciate. Like, he's so fun to watch, man. He's so fun to watch.
Yeah. I think he just does shit that, like, you can't teach is like kind of the saying, but also that if you don't do it now, it's not like you can practice it and get better. Like the vision, the passing, that type of stuff. Like, I don't really see that type of game or that type of skill evolving in players throughout their careers. Like, you just got it, you don't, and he does. And the other thing I think is whenever I see a dude move that slowly and still cook defenders and like just being able to like you just got something, man. Like I think just really really awesome to watch. I think right now what I've got my eye on is like his best couple games have been with Z, and hasn't looked quite the same without him. And so I'm just curious. Like it just seems like those two just fit really nicely together. But also, do you want to like Zion may not be long for this team, depending on how they handle the next few months. So I think a lot of questions still. But man, I mean, it's been really really great to see him and Fears show out the way they have so far this season.
Yeah. Before you go, Sham, I don't care about the indie pick no more. I just don't. Shouts out to Maples. He put in the chat, if that pick isn't 1 or 2, y'all shouldn't care. We won't go that far. If another high level draft pick would have really been appreciated, if they would have protected the top 4 or top 8. But the indie pick, which had top 4 protection going their way, give me Queen. Give me Queen. Like that pick has to be as good as Queen for me to even contemplate should have they made trade with Indiana. Poor process or not, you look like you got a star on your hands with that part of the transaction. Like I'm Indy, sorry, your injury apocalypse, so you're gonna get a good pick. I do not care. I don't have to watch a single second of Indiana basketball.
Yeah, look, the picks are a sunk cost. Like they're like, yes, we're gonna discuss them because it was a bad trade at the time from a process standpoint. Yes, like when the lottery numbers come around, we're probably gonna discuss them again. But they're a sunk cost, and we talked about that. And we talked about how moving forward, none of the decisions that they make should have any considerations on what those picks were or they're gonna be. Right? They shouldn't make a win now trade just to make that pick worse. They should make the win now trade if they really believe that the guy that they're going to get is going to be a long-term fit with Queen and Fears and what they're building, right? That is the trade that they should make. And to be clear, like, I don't know if those guys are out there, but this is just speaking on the theory aspect of it, right? But I think there's a couple of things that I want to call out from what I saw on a court perspective and just specifically in the Dallas game, because I think the Dallas game is the first game that Borrego had post the practice he's coached. So he's had one practice with a team. When he got hired, I think they had a back-to-back coming up, and then there was an off day, and then on Thursday that they were able to practice for the first time was their first practice, 45-minute practice. It's at 45 minutes to practice with this team. Because we were in there at noon interviewing with the people. The practice started at 11. They travel to Dallas, play the Cup game on Friday. That is the first game they play after one practice that Borrego's had. And here's what I saw with the starters and just in general. First of all, to start the game, they had these cross screens coming off baseline to get Herb Jones right under the basket, easy layup, right? Number of times, they've been able to do this. Derik Queen at the top of the key. There's action going on the strong side that's going to occupy the defense. They're trying to figure out, okay, is this guy coming off a stagger to get a handoff from Queen? Is this guy going to make a back cut? Like if they're getting if that's a shooter, are they getting top lock? Are they going to make a back cut? Is Queen going to be able to get them under the rim? Meanwhile, on the weak side, there's also action going on to occupy the help, right? Because otherwise that tagger is going to come in and mess up anything that you got going on in the middle of the floor. So there's action going on both sides of the ball to intentionally manipulate help. And we haven't seen that, in my opinion, like for 4 years. Like under the Willie Green era, I think consistently, I think that was one of my complaints is they don't manipulate the help. They don't manipulate the low man. They don't have stuff going on both sides. And they don't have progressions where we talk about like, okay, if this breaks down, this is his next thing that he's going to go to, right? These are the multiple looks that they're trying to generate. Then I saw this was like a super fun sequence. So they would come down and then Queen would have the ball at the top of the key, and then they would take a small, maybe Herb, maybe Trey. Honestly, Trey's been setting more on-ball screens than I've ever seen him set. And they would go set that screen with that shooter on Queen's man, and then that would cause chaos because then they have to see, are you going to put two on Trey? Or do you have to go with a shooter? Is Trey going to just dive to the rim instead? Or, are we going to concede a smaller person on Queen and let him cook and let him bully people? And then the next possession down, Zion would come bring the ball up, and then Fears would go set a screen on Zion's man. It'd be an inverted pick and roll. And then the next possession, Fears would bring the ball down, and Zion would set a screen on Fears. So, they're throwing so much at you. The Pelicans are finally becoming this offensive team where you're like, oh my God, they're using all 5 pieces on the floor, and they're using them in tandem. And this is after one practice. And I thought, and then on the other end, man, the number of second effort contests that I saw that first half was unbelievable. They were flying around on defense. One, I really do think, I've had a hot take for a while, that Queen being in deep drop actually makes their defense better. I thought over the past few years, Willie leaned too much into being at the level or just switching and playing higher on the screens. And I thought Willie's best defensive games came when JV was on the court. Let him play deep drop, let him collect the rebounds, and then, you figure out the rest. I think the Pelicans have the size and athleticism on the wings to play in deep drop and just kind of live with the percentages, whatever they may be. And I think it puts the Pelicans in rotation less. Now, second half was a little bit of a different story. We can talk about that. What did you guys see in that second half that, you saw that actually ultimately ended up causing them to lose the game?
Well, I have a process related question first on some of the stuff you talked about. And why do you think there's been such an immediate transformation in how the Pelicans are playing offense just because they changed coaches? I feel like you would hope that Borrego has input, right, into how they play offensively, like defensive stylistic. I'm not really talking about defensive end because that's true. That's a philosophical decision. I feel like on the offensive end, you're talking about just certain sets in a lot of cases. And why would is that something that Borrego kept holstered because he was angling for the job, or is that something that he tried to throw out there and Willie wasn't having it? I've got some pretty fundamental questions about that kind of stuff before we even start talking about what's happening on the
I think it's more the latter, right? Well, and it eventually becomes a combination of the two, because let's say you're hired for this job, and the job you're hired for is to run the offense, right? I think when Borrego was hired, that was kind of the understanding, and they did for a very, very brief period of time attempt to do a Borrego version of the offense, and then they abandoned it. And they abandoned it for the season and a half or whatever long that Borrego was here, until now he's been made interim head coach. And I think it's two things happen there. I think one, initially when Borrego's first brought in, all the reporter questions to Willie were oh, the JB offense, the JB offense, the JB offense. And I think Willie felt some kind of way. And I think what also happened there is JB called Zion and BI, or texted them and told them, hey, let's work individually, because back then the questions around that group were, can they operate in crunch time? They lose crunch time games. How do you involve your best players in actions together? And so JB texted Zion and he said, hey, after practice, let's run through some sets with you two and let's get it going. So they did that for 2-3 practices in a row. They had a game that they played, and they won a clutch game using BI and Zion in the middle of the floor in actions together. And boy, oh boy, was that the talk of the the post game and everything. And then the next day, in those post practice sessions with JB, Zion, and BI, who's there? Willie Green. Willie Green is there. And so I think to a degree, some of it was territorial from Willie. And then the second part of it is Willie was suggestible to certain players. If BI wanted to play a certain way, I think Willie would accommodate that. And I think, regrettably, and Maples, close your ears, man. Close your ears. I know you're listening. I think BI wanted to play a certain style, and Willie did his best to accommodate that. But I think the other aspect of it was,
he's in here. Maples is in here.
I know. That's what I said. Close your ears. I know he's listening. The other aspect about it is that the assistant coaches, again, kind of going back to since you're not the lead decision maker here, you can only set your boss up to succeed as much as possible, and it's up to them to kind of decide if they want to implement your plays. A lot of what the head coach does during games is kind of decide what kind of play calls are going to be happening, what kind of stuff that they're going to be getting into. And so Willie started to move away from that slowly until he was largely away from it. And then at that point, when the coach has abandoned kind of these sets and these structures, maybe you feel like, your role is more so to then just kind of provide the coach whatever he needs rather than suggest new things, right? It kind of like, I'm not saying that's what happened. Like, I haven't talked to JB about this, but I'm saying that is a natural thing to occur moving forward, where it's like, okay, you've been the ideas guy and then your ideas haven't been implemented, then maybe you stop being the ideas guy and you become more of a support guy, right? Like, there's still a ton of other responsibilities for assistant coaches, like in terms of opposing scouts and helping run the practice and this, that, the other. But it becomes less so about having your imprint on the team, more so about executing the head coach's vision on the team. And so now that Willie's gone and he's in this lead seat, he has a direct control over the type of plays that can be called on a game basis and what their points of emphasis are going to be and what the teaching points of emphasis are going to be at practice. And so, again, it's been one practice. They've had 2 shoot-arounds, I think, maybe 1 walkthrough. It's going to be a process. I'm excited to see what that offensive process looks like moving forward. But I do think, like, again, going back to this question about the second half and why they fell flat, there are things that Borrego needs to clean up. I thought, for one, was a little bit surprising, the all-bench lineup.
Yes, that's what I was going to speak on.
Talk about it.
Yeah, so there was a point in the second half where neither Trey Queen or Z were on the court. And that's when Dallas made their second run. And I'm already thinking, like, Fears and Queen have to be really good to great for this team to be competitive, and that's unfair to the rookies. But that is a necessity. So do not have neither rookie or your 2 other best offensive engines on the court. Like, you are allowing teams to make runs because, one, those guys don't play with force, especially in the second unit. They make mental.
I'm going to push back on that. I
Okay.
think, again, we tend to ascribe effort to where there is not talent. And I'm going to, like Misi plays with force. Jose plays with force, right? But PV plays with force. But when you have all 3 of those in a lineup together with Bay and I don't know who the 4th guy
Hawk.
was, whatever.
It's Hawk.
Hawk. Right. Yeah. How much talent is out there?
None. So you have these guys who aren't talented, respectively, to their peers on the court, and it's off to the races. You either make a turnover waiting to happen or a missed shot that allows guys the defense to get in transition and second transition, then the floor is not balanced, then it's easy looks and second chances, and boy, do they get killed on second chance opportunities. So it's not playing the matchups, not allowing at least having 2 of those 4 on the court at all time. That should be a must. And even if I give him a very small slither of, hey, he's trying to figure out, just like he's trying to implement his own style and playbook, he's also trying to figure out which players are going to work well together. And I could give him shoot that little bell. 2 of Fears, Queen, Z, and Trey have to be on the court. And more important, it can't just be Trey only lineups. Like, those, the lack of ball handling there is paramount, and it's turnovers waiting to happen. So it got to be 2 of those guys at the same time.
The one thing that I want to, like, ponder on, the one thing that I want to actually, like, think about out loud is, what if these current rotations are set up because, one, he wants to maximize the time the starters have together. And so you see it with coaches, the more traditional guys in the past. I think Doc Rivers has done it all the time. Is like you get the starters playing, 36 minutes a game, and it's like 32 of their 36 minutes are like together, right? And then you have the rest of it as stagger units, and the approach there is, well, we're just gonna kick ass because the starters play a lot together, and we're just gonna dominate those minutes. The other thing with Borrego is I wonder if he's just trying to buy precious time. Like, hey, we haven't had a ton of possessions with these guys together. The more I throw them out there together, the better it is from a learning perspective, a data generation perspective, and all of that. The third thing I wonder is, in tandem with that of getting the starters to play like the rotation that they are going to play if the team is healthy, I wonder if they're set up knowing that, okay, when Poole comes back and DeJounte comes back, like some of these all bench units are really not truly all bench units in terms of like the talent that's out there, right? So why change around the rotation? Well, I don't know how far Poole is, to be honest with you. I really don't. But what if the thought process behind that is, hey, we're gonna stick the starters to the rotation that we project them to be on for the rest of the season, and then the bench will just kind of deal with guys being in and out.
That's something that I've thought about as well. So it is a talent deficit, especially when there's so much talent in street clothes. But that's the Pelicans way, isn't it? Like they find ways to have the more talented guys not available, and we have to hope that these, should be end of bench rotations guys not have to play 17, 20 minutes a night.
Yeah, the other thing I found kind of tough is, like, I know the Pelicans like to be ambiguous about Zion's availability on back-to-backs. I think we all know that Zion's not playing back-to-backs for the foreseeable future, right? Like, if he plays back-to-backs, it's probably in a season where wins actually matter, or if it's this season, it's like when he's proven that he can play 10 games in a row minus like the whole back-to-back thing, right? It's when he's proven that, okay, he's had 2 months of like availability. All right, let's put him in a back-to-back situation. But like right now, I think everyone understands he's not playing back-to-backs. So knowing that,
hold on, let me push back slightly on that. While I understand and I agree with you, I also do understand fans who have, it's year 7 of this. Why are we doing this?
Yeah, I mean, that's not the. Yeah.
I'm just putting it out there because I know people, they're going to hear that and they're like, yeah, but he's supposed to be the star. He should be available. I understand their frustrations on that.
Yeah, but my point isn't that. My point is, why not play Zion more Friday night to try to win that game? You know what I mean? Like, why not some of these other guys? Like, what I'm trying to say here is I think Borrego and the staff could have pushed down on the gas pedal a little more that Friday night, knowing that, hey, Atlanta, maybe some guys were going to take off, or maybe you just give a lot of guys the nights off. I mean, I don't know. I'm not trying to suggest that people should load manage, blah, blah, blah. I'm trying to open that can of worms. But what I'm trying to say is there was opportunity to push the issue a little more on Friday that I think they left some change on the table. The one thing I haven't seen you guys talk about, I'd like to get your thoughts on 0 for 14 on threes in the second half.
Some of them were good looks. Some were good looks, and then there were the ones at the end of the game, like desperation shots. You're gonna have games. Every team have games like that. Like I don't. It's just bad luck, bad shooting luck, good shooting luck for the Mavs during that time. But there was more about.
Gotta love that.
There was more the discrepancy of 32 versus 48 is more of an issue than them going 0-4 the second half.
Yeah, we were talking Mavs or Hawks game on the threes.
The Mavs.
Yes.
Yeah. So of course, like Najee hits a game winner over well, not over Zion, because Zion would have to close out for it to be over Zion, but like, man, the guys who missed. Are you Did you guys talk about the Zion closeout yet, or am I?
No, go for it. That's what we're gonna get
for
to.
it.
Like that's so. My point of frustration on that one was like not just the closeout, but the timing, the specific timing of that shot. Because if you want to let Najee pull up when there's 24 seconds or 25 seconds left on the shot clock, as long as it's like intentional and you're like, I don't want him to shot fake and go around me and get an easy bucket, I'm okay with that closing out there. You let him shoot that ball with like 31 seconds left and they're going to get a 2-for-1. So like you just, at that specific moment, you've got to know, you've got to go close out on that shooter. And the fact that he made it or missed it is like irrelevant to me almost. Like it's just the lack of effort, but also the lack of, kind of understanding of the situation and the time on the clock. It's like if he's pulling up there because they're going to get a 2-for-1 if he shoots at that point. And so he was like, all right, I'm wide open. I'm just going to pull up. And he nailed it. And the Pelicans lost, kind of because of it.
But I can go further on the not understanding time and situation in the third quarter where there's 20 seconds left and he does a haphazard handoff to get her Hawk free, and like Hawk running offense, and the play is over, and there's 17 seconds when he shoots the ball. Like you gave them an extra possession when they had like 14 seconds left on the shot clock. You are giving away possessions. You're not understanding time and situation where you can steal points or steal possessions away. And that is mind-numbing with this team and him in particular, because he does it quite a bit, not understanding the situation at hand.
I mean, that was a poor game management game from Zion. Just even at the end of the game. And look, I don't know if Zion pitches it to Hawk, hoping that he'd get the ball back, right? I mean, sometimes they do a swing, re-swing to just kind of reset stuff. But again, it's the end of the quarter situation. Ball should be in your hands. Just run, like a 4 flat, you at the key, just do something, right? Like that's a better result than what would happen there.
And don't start until there's 10 seconds left, more importantly.
Right.
Like you starting so soon.
And the other thing is you kind of saw it at the end of the game too. He deferred to fears. It was one of the least aggressive games that I'd seen from Zion from a I want to close this game standpoint. I don't know if he's feeling unconfident in his body or just whatever. I mean, he's played like 7 games this season. Like he hasn't even played basketball. And I think that just kind of brings it all back to the conversations we've had around Zion for the last 7 years. And it's just like it is impossible to build around a part-time player. It is just impossible. And it's impossible for him to catch a rhythm too. And it's just doesn't do anyone any type of good. But yeah, man, Derik Queen killed it that game. He ended up with 16 potential assists, obviously 11 actual assists, almost had that triple-double, and just made some unbelievable passes that I've not seen players in a Pelican uniform make since Rajon Rondo. The Pelicans should absolutely explore what the limits of Queen's creation potential are. They should absolutely furnish him with the type of players that are going to succeed. There's so much tendency to want to burn it all down and trade away Trey and trade away Herb and just get all these assets. And I think they need the steady hands of those players to make Fears and Queen's life easier and to help them progress. And so there's no rush to move off of guys with 4 years left on their contracts. And look, if someone wants to come and blow away they want to give you 4 first-round picks and some swaps, or they want to give you a ton of young players, whatever, sure, you have to listen to those type of deals. You do. It'd be organizationally irresponsible not to. But you can't make the moves for the sake of, well, we're asset poor now. Let's just kind of become this team that tries to recoup some kind of value. And that's what you want to hang your hat on. Like, let Queen blossom with good players is my pitch.
Yeah. I think one more thing about it, it's incredibly intuitive, but just like one thing that's so great, so awesome to see with Derik Queen is like he's 6'11", right? Like it's just like dudes that are taller just have inherent advantages in passing the rock, seeing things that other players can't see. And so I'm with you. Push the limits. Like, let's use his court vision, the fact that he can see over a lot of other players in ways that other traditional guards can't, to wow us. I think it's just, again, yeah, tall. He's tall, so he can pass, like, so he can see more. Is like obvious, but when you have that type of passing innate skill, leverage all the advantages you have.
Oh, I want to bring up one thing that James Borrego talked about, and then I want to, since we're at the hour mark, I want to open it up to like us to get the questions in the chat. Just get like 3, 4, like, I don't know, just a few questions in the chat, and then we'll wrap it up. But I asked James Borrego last night after the Hawks game. So first of all, Borrego talked extensively about the Hawks' defensive game plan, on how they put Dyson on Queen. One, because Dyson's a pest defensively, and Queen's been able to historically like beat bigs and use his finesse. But when Dyson, when a defender as good as Dyson is on him, it complicates the ability for Queen to put the ball on the floor, and makes everything else harder. But it also allows the Hawks to switch those screening actions that we were talking about, and the Pelicans to not gain an advantage there. The other thing that they talked about was how like the Hawks kind of like Tony Allen to Micah Peavy, and the Pelicans were forced into playing through Micah Peavy as sort of this like center, where you had to like set picks and screen and roll and do kind of things. And to their credit, the Pelicans adjusted and they won the Peavy minutes. But Borrego, you should go watch that interview. He talked extensively about how that's not something they've ever practiced, is playing through Micah Peavy. And yet, the Hawks and Quinn Snyder, like, they threw that game plan out there where, they were effectively just not going to guard Peavy, or they're going to guard him with a center, they're going to put like Porzingis on it. And so that was a very interesting discussion that I encourage people to read. And I think that's a level of clarity that we just never got with Willie. Like, if a team did anything like that, like Willie would say, well, they should do more to free themselves up for better shots. It's like, what, like, paint to great, play 0.5. And it's like, okay, that's not meaningful. But Borrego had a great answer on that. The last point was, I asked Borrego specifically on, look, sometimes when you're at a talent deficit, the way to bridge the gap is just to take a ton of threes, because there will be nights when you take a ton of threes where you get stupid hot and you just win the math game and you're going to win the game. And that's typically what teams that are bad, like when you look at like the upsets in the NBA, the reason the underdog won the game is because they got stupid hot from three. Like, not always, right? But or the favorite like just went like 2 for 17 in a half, and that just killed their offense. So I asked Borrego, like, are you sometimes tempted to just ditch the actual game plan and be like, hey, like, tonight we're taking a ton of threes? And I thought he had a really, really good answer on that. And his answer was like, yes, like from a math equation standpoint, like, you're right. That is something that we could do. But he's like, I'm trying to build habits here, especially with a young team. And when you have a young team, are you trying to win the math equation, or are you trying to build something that they can use moving forward? And he's like, part of what we're building has to be that we generate these looks, and we have to be able to get good quality looks. And that's going to be something that we're going to continue to work on. But the overall thing is, and I think it was a very clear-eyed answer for someone who's, I think the deck is stacked against Borrego in terms of keeping his job, but kind of lets you know that he's got a more longer-term approach. He's still trying to do what's best for Queen and Fears, rather than win the game that's directly in front of him. And maybe that's not something like fans like agree with, in terms of like, well, they should try to win every single game possible, and they should do whatever they can to win it. And I respect and appreciate that mentality. But I also appreciate Borrego having one eye on the future and being like, look, if these guys are going to be successful ball players in the future, we got to do things the right way. And there's a process to this, and the results will eventually come because of the good process. And I really respected that answer.
I agree.
Yep. Totally agree with that one.
Refreshing to get more transparency is the wrong word, but like just more thought behind answering questions versus just like, I don't know if Willie thought like every question was like out to like make him expose something that he wanted to expose, but like I feel like that can be a common thing that coaches do, is like worry about oversharing, and so they share nothing. And I think so far I think Borrego's found the nice line there. So hopefully we continue to get that from him.
Yeah.
I'm going through some of these questions. We kind of spoke on them, but we can go a little in depth on them. Looking at Maples asked about, we spoke on Zion's and Queen's fit offensively. What do you think about his defensive fit? Schmidt talked about Queen and Me in the deep drop that I like. I just like that that all of them are chaos agents. They want to attack loose balls and get deflections and run in transition. And they're not nearly as long as they used to be in like 2 years ago. But I believe that with Zion's ability to just cause havoc, like he caused a steal against Dallas just by meeting them at the screen. He caused a loose ball and a steal to come out. Derik Queen in deep drop puts his hands up, gets blocks, gets deflection. Um, Trey is a deflections magnet. So I just believe that all of them have the mentality of trying to attack, deflection, cause chaos on the court defensively. What about you guys?
Beam Team Kings. That's the bar. Be one of the best 5 offenses in the league, and be the 15th best defense. I don't care about the rest. I think this team, if built correctly, is capable of surpassing that. Obviously, they're nowhere near that right now with the way they're built. But I think that is something they're capable of. And I would continue to set the bar at the Beam Team Kings. They were really fun. They had a very similar roster construction with that athletic point guard and a hub playmaking big that has defensive deficiencies, but they didn't have the size and the wings that the Pelicans do. And they didn't have, what Zion is able to provide the Pelicans when he's available. Just the question was about Zion.
Oh. I'm intrigued to see whenever DeJounte comes back, just as another guy who will be a bomb volume 3-point shooter, just like another willing guy just to get those shots up. And I think I'm curious to see how this squad would look kind of if you plug in DeJounte for Herb, and see like how dynamic that offense can be. The defense probably is the dumpster fire, but what I think be very, very exciting at least.
Yeah. So there was another question here that I wanted to pull up regarding some trade stuff. So always fun to talk about trades. The first one is from another Mason. So Mason Brick 86, which Mason, are you sure that's not your burner account? You
This is like a roast of Mason on this one, man. Come on, I ain't that bad at hoops.
Hey, you're in town, man. We gotta get our shots in. But so the question from Mason Brick is, how do we turn Jose and Herb into a wing scorer? And I guess my question for y'all would be, is that something you'd be wanting to do?
I was gonna not really first of all, do you want Hawk? If you were a fan of any other team, do you want Jordan Hawkins? That's the first thing. So to turn Hawk into a wing scorer, I'm gonna have to trade like 3 first-round picks to do that.
Well, you got to figure out who these wing scorers are, right? It's a degree of scoring, right? You got at the bottom of this scoring, you got guys like Corey Kispert and Svi, whatever his last name is.
I don't think Detroit's giving him up right now.
In Utah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's in Utah. That's the bottom rung, right? And then you got the higher rung of wing scorers who don't tend to be available in a trade. And so the answer to always this always comes down to how many first round picks are you willing to give up, and what you believe the value of Herb Jones to be. Me personally, I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding of what Herb Jones is as a player, and I'm in no rush to move off of Herb Jones. Despite his struggles to start the season, this is a player that played 20 odd games last season.
Yep.
Didn't have an off season to train and play basketball, and was cleared just before training camp started. There is a lot of rust to shake off. And I believe that he'll shake it off. And 2, players like Herb always look terrible when there is a talent deficit on teams. And you saw that with Caruso when he was on those garbage Bulls teams. And then all of a sudden, Caruso looked amazing with the Lakers, won a championship with them, looked really, really good with the Bulls when they were healthy that one year with Lonzo and Levine and for those when they were the first seed in the East.
Yep.
And then when it all went to shit with the Bulls, like Caruso looked like the PJ Tucker of guards, where it was just like, this guy, like, what does he provide you? And then now, he's in OKC and he looks amazing again. And he's just like, people are talking about, is Caruso the finals MVP? Like, I mean, like, those are the conversations people are having on Caruso. So Herb is cut from the same cloth of player. I would, especially on his contract, do what it takes to hold on to him. You can shift his role, right? Like, he doesn't have to be a starter. You can change your roster construction, but like, that's a player that every team wants and needs. And I think you will see a different version of in the future. But Jose and Hawk, man, like they just don't really have the value league wide. So that's tough.
The best way to turn Hawk into a wing scorer is Jordan Poole and DeJounte Murray get healthy so Sadiq Bey could play his minutes.
Would you do a Poole, Bey, DeJounte, some combination of that those large salaries? Like, who says no? Those large salaries to Philly for Paul George and some kind of draft compensation.
Sure, that's another. I would do it, yeah, because for all of his slights, he is someone who you could just slot and do all these.
35% of the salary. Was it 30%? 30% of the salary cap for him, right? I don't know.
No, 35. No, it was 35. It was 35. He got the max. He got the max.
He might be one of the 5 worst contracts in the league right now.
I'm getting. You said, and I'm getting draft compensation. The answer is yes.
No, you're not getting draft compensation.
I'm giving away.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not how you said. Paul George and draft compensation.
No, you're not getting draft.
Well, that's a different conversation. Let's hold off on that until another.
And if it was no draft compensation from either team?
He has 2 more after this year. Probably not.
Okay.
I'd rather go save the Kings from Zach LaVine and like get a contract that ends a year sooner. Like,
see, John in the chat thought the same thing as I did because he said in a heartbeat.
Maybe I misspoke. It's possible. There's other guys like Michael Porter Jr. I think we talked about on this podcast a little bit. Like, I would happily trade some I would trade. I've said it before. I would do some combination of Zion and one of those 2 guards that make a lot of money on the Pelicans, and whatever is needed to bridge the gap for Porter Jr. and Claxton. Like, that is a trade I would make yesterday. Like, I would do it. I think they should. And PJ is another person that has injury issues, and you don't want to put him in front of a microphone ever. But
you mean that you don't want to hear the musings?
No. No. But in a media market like New Orleans, maybe he just never gets put in front of a mic, and they don't make headlines.
Spokesperson of the New Orleans Pelicans, Michael Porter Jr.
No.
Draft.
No, absolutely.
Draft candidate on the day is Michael Porter Jr.
But MPJ is a bucket. He has been proven to work next to Jokic, and he fits in a movement, cutting, shooting, dunking system. I mean, that's a guy that works. What would you take a gamble on guys who haven't been paid yet but might blow up? Like, is Ben Mathurin a person you'd be willing to swing for? Like, I wonder if there's a trade out there for Indiana that's something that's Messi for Mathurin, like some kind of some trade.
I actually think you hit on it with Corey Kispert. That's who the one. Even though he's been paid, it's not really paid. I think Corey Kispert will be the guy that I target in a trade of that nature.
What about the Golden State group, right? Like, they have Kuminga, Moody, and Pods. Do any
in Moody, Kuminga, Pods for me in that order?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, so there's guys out there. We'll see who end up being the Joe Dumars and Troy Weaver guys. But I think, man, we've gone on for an hour and 15.
Yes, we have.
Obligations to get to. We're gonna wrap it up. Jay, take it away.
Couple things. Rest in peace to Rodney Rogers, former New Orleans Hornet on it. And salute to Chris Paul officially calling the career after this season. He put on Instagram to let you know that is a retirement. It's not that he didn't say it at the beginning of the season. And Shams reported it, so you definitely know that he's retiring. But in all seriousness, it's, the best player of this franchise's history. The engine should have won MVP in 2007, 2008. I will tell anyone that. Mabels, I know you're listening to that too. He should have won MVP. He's got the steals record that Jason Daniels is trying to chase. He will probably be the last 6-foot guard to ever win 8+ all defensive teams. He is the feistiest general, the best competitor that at that size you'll ever see. I'll probably ever see in my lifetime. So salute to your great career. 21 years is a hell of a long time, and thank you for all the memories, especially in this city. On that note, appreciate all y'all that came live. Appreciate y'all who's going to listen to and watch later. Share the episode, like it, subscribe to the channel so you can know when we come in live, and we will talk to y'all soon.
Just hit that button right now. Like I see y'all in the chat. Just hit the like button right now.
Get your friends' phone. Hit the button. Yeah. Hit that button and subscribe to the subby. You want all the conversation, the part of the conversation that we're on. Subscribe to the Substack. Great reporting, as you know. It'll also be in the links in the comments. Y'all be easy.